Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Money. Woo! All right. Welcome to the Beantown podcast. This is Quinn, David, Furness. We are coming to you live from beautiful Beantown, 817 St. Paul Street. I am doing my taxes today. All right. We are excited. We are going to be joined by a guest here in just a second. First, I got to give my listener discretion as advised. Tag one might drop a few words here and there. Two, the podcast is just objectively terrible, so keep that on your radar as we move ahead. But I am glad to be joined today by one of my best friends in life, longest friend I have, professional tax accountant, and one of the greatest guitar players I know, Matthew Fiedler. Welcome to the Beantown podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I feel like because you had some disclaimers, I should have one as well. I don't know where you got the professional tax accountant thing from, because I work in audit. I only dabbled slightly in taxes. So there's my disclaimer up front.
Well, to most of the listening audience, I think taxes, audits are pretty synonymous. So,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Matthew, tell us a little bit more about what you do.
So I went to school to do something in finance, and I picked I needed something in business, so I picked the alphabetical order of stuff. I was like, I'll just do accounting, I'll switch later, and then I just forgot to change my major, so by the time I graduated, I was stuck at accounting. But I interned doing audit, and now I work full-time, and when I say full-time, I mean
full-time plus.
Busy season now, so, but it's good, it's fun. Accounting, you need to have a dry sense of humor and no social life. I've got both of those.
He checks all the boxes. That's why we love him. Yeah. Oh, man. Matthew, have you done your 2017 taxes yet?
I did them last year. Yeah. I'm kidding. I did them so I did them 2 weeks ago, actually using TurboTax.
Corporate plug.
I haven't submitted them yet, so
Okay.
Just because I'm waiting there's a few other items that might be trickling through legally. Here's a legal for you. Legally, all of your tax information should be sent to you by mid-February. So if your employer is holding out on you, technically they're committing a crime.
Now you know the law pretty well. What kind of settlements could we be expecting if you sue your employer and when they don't send you your tax returns by mid-February? We talking multiple millions or what?
You probably would never see any of that. I wouldn't even say a million, let alone multiples. That's kind of between an IRS thing and a you thing.
Okay.
But my guess, and I've never experienced this, but I would assume that the IRS would do something with your company, find them, or you probably wouldn't see any of that money, is what I'm getting at.
I never see any money. I know what you mean. Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Feeling a little burpy today. It could be the beer that I'm working my way through right now. We are trying Peabody Heights Mr. Trash Wheels Lost Python Ale. It's absolutely delicious. It's refreshing. For those of you who don't know, so in Beantown, we have, and in our harbor, it's kind of our big thing. And there's this machine with wheels that floats around the harbor picking up trash. And I was just reading the Wikipedia entry on it the other night. They put some really strange googly eyes on it. So now it looks like a animated object, and they call it Mr. Trash Wheel. And yeah, it just floats around the harbor picking up trash.
basically, it's your guys' version of like the Loch Ness monster.
Except you can see it anytime you want.
Except it's real.
Because I know exactly where it sits in between like Pier 3 and Pier 4, I think. But yeah, this is great. For those of you just joining us, we are doing our taxes live on the air with a professional tax professional, Matthew Fiedler.
There's like 5 too many professionals in that statement.
The more you say professional, the better it gets. That's what I've learned throughout the years. So what I'm going to do, we got a couple things that we would love to get through here as we're doing our taxes. First, I'm going to give you a rundown of the different forms that I am working with here. And Matthew, I would love it if you could just give us a brief summary of of what each of these forms is all about. So I'll start you off with a softball. I have 2 W-2s here. Now, what are we dealing with W-2s?
W-2s, that would be your standard employer. They fill out, they'll get a W-3 at the end of the year. And that's basically a summary for all employers. W-2 is the only thing that you'll see. That's your probably most basic tax form that you're ever going to see.
Now, if you were to receive a W-3 in the email or some WD-40, what would your next step be?
WD-40, I would probably use that to lubricate my door hinge. It's been really squeaky. And as far as a W-3, technically you should never see that unless you're the employer. So.
Hey, that's pretty good advice there. Now, what if you had a Chevy Bronco that's been broken down by the side of your garage for just decades? Would the WD-40 be?
Because that's sacrilegious. It's a
Ford Bronco.
Chevy Blazer.
I'm sorry. I have a confession to make. I knew it was a Bronco. I didn't know which company though. So I Googled. The first thing I Googled was Chevy Bronco, and pictures came up. Is there a Chevy Bronco too?
Okay, well, if you Google like a Liger, something will come up for that too, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So if you look for something on the internet, you'll find it.
There's a conspiracy theory article 2 days ago. Ford's Bronco concept car was actually based on a South African Chevy. Oh boy.
So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no comment. Am I right? Okay, that was the W-2. And next, we're dealing with 1098-T. Now, that's a tougher one. What are we thinking about there?
Well, I would say that's your basic tuition statement. Basically, financial representation of that. Normally, I haven't seen one in, I guess this will be 2 years. But it's obviously related to your education. I think that there's 2 types of this form. I don't know which one you have. One of them is not really in a box at all, like the standard how tax forms look. It's just like a letter, and then you kind of have to dig for the financial information. Some forms are better than others. What one do you have? Do you know?
Let's see. I'm looking at. Are we still talking about a 1098-T?
Yeah.
I got some boxes here.
Oh, good. No, that's the kind you want. Okay, good.
Well, we are cooking with gas now. Now here's a tough one for you. What are we talking about with a 1099-Q?
1099-Q.
That's what they used to call me in high school. Continue, please.
I'm curious about this because I don't think I've ever seen. I think it relates to a form of annuity.
Ooh, we stumped the expert. Hello.
Stump the chump. It has to do with. Is it tuition?
It sure is. A
Okay,
529 plan.
Okay, all right. Well, that's the extent of it. I guess it was either that or tuition. Tuition is right.
Now here's your bonus question. I'm going to read you their federal identification number, and you tell me which plan it is. 521752528.
I think I don't know
Oh yeah. Hey, we're learning from each other. I love this. That's 2018, man. Let's see here. Last one we have is an interesting one that just kind of snuck up on me the other day. A Form 5498.
5498.
Yep. Hey, we didn't talk about this in rehearsal, did we?
Is this an IRA form?
It sure is. IRA contribution information. Now, you only... So tell me this. I've heard that you only have to do IRA tax stuff if you withdrew from that account in that year, and that you really don't need to do anything if you're just depositing. Is that correct?
I would say it kind of really depends on the... Now, my experience with IRAs is fairly limited. I will tell you a short story of a man who withdrew from his IRA. I actually did his personal taxes, and this was 2 years ago when I was in my prime, and he lost $60,000 because he withdrew early. That he was slapped with a $60,000 fine. Don't withdraw from your IRAs early, kids. Let that be a lesson to you. But it depends. There's quite a few different IRAs out there, and honestly, the IRS wants you to report everything, like all the way down to any cash that you receive that doesn't flow through, actual tax forms. How many of us actually do that? But the thing about like IRAs, they're going to be submitting information to the IRS separately, and basically what they do is they'll take. I'll compare it to like an employer first. So let's say your employer, they keep track of your wages and all taxes, and they send you a W-2. Well, your employer sends the W-3 to the IRS, and you send your W-2 to the IRS, and basically the IRS just matches it to make sure that it agrees. Because if you weren't to file your taxes, they'd know that there was someone that didn't. Basically, there's a loose end out there. So I would suggest the same thing with the form. What is it, 5498? 5498?
Yeah, 5498.
5498. Yeah, it's better just to do it than to not. That's my guess.
That's pretty good insight there.
Hey, limited experience out here, but...
Now, I have a pretty big announcement here. We just entered our first W-2, which is always a good step in the right direction, but I got to change up. We moved states this year from Illinois out here in Beantown. So what are we dealing with here when you move states? How is that going to change things?
Did you have any moving expenses?
Oh, I sure did.
You might be able to...
Let me tell you.
You might be able to write those off. I can't remember if it's for work related reasons or not, but I think there's a certain level that you can write off any moving expenses. Do you keep track of that? Do you have a little ledger that you keep in your back pocket?
Well, I've got my online receipts from the truck company.
Okay, that's a good place to start. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what TurboTax asks for when we get to that point.
I think they actually ask if you've moved. What you're going to end up doing is probably filing an Illinois form, and then also your current residence. I guess I could just say you announce your address at the beginning of every podcast. Are you concerned that haters are going to egg your house?
I live in an apartment building. They'll be tough. I don't. I've never announced my apartment number. I don't believe.
Okay,
so.
That's smart. Yeah.
It's funny you should mention that. So one of my favorite podcasters and legendary stand-up comedian, Bill Burr, just had a daughter like a year ago, and he's made it a point throughout his podcast so far. He does 2 every week to never say his daughter's name on the air, but today he accidentally slipped up, I think, without him even knowing it, and he said his daughter's name. So that's about the end of that story, and it's not particularly interesting, but it was just relevant to what we just talked about there. That's good stuff. So the moving truck expenses would be huge if I can get something from that.
I think you're going to have to fill out, they call it a 3903 form for moving. And if you meet the distance test, which is 50 miles away from your old home and 70 miles away from your old place of employment, I think it is, which I think that you qualify for both of those. Across the country.
Just a little.
Then I think you'll be able to get some money back for that. Now, I don't know if that's an itemization.
Tell us more about itemizations. What does that mean?
So, either get the standard deduction or you can itemize. For individuals like yourself and me, things that you can itemize include mortgages, health costs, medical costs, and student loan interest. Those are all things, and property tax. But for us, like I haven't really had that many medical expenses. So you can do the greater of all of those itemizations, or you take a standard deduction, which it's going up next year, I believe. And this is how behind I am. I don't even know what the final number is going to be next year. They kind of bump it up a little bit every year just because inflation and cost of living and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to say that it's 12,000 maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention for the last 2 minutes, but 12,000 sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but that's just the amount that you don't necessarily get taxed on. So
Okay.
I think so married is 12,700, and then but it's changing. So I don't know what the final number is going to be. That's how far I've been. I haven't read through the new tax plan. But you could get married and you can get that $12,000 deduction. Yeah, that'd be good.
Sure. So I'm glad you brought that up. I won't ask you to make any sort of political commentary, but I am curious. What are just your quick hitting thoughts on what this tax bill is going to mean for the average lower middle class working guy like you or I?
It's going to be huge. No, I don't know. I honestly mixed feelings. Refraining from political ideas, I just ultimately I don't know if the long-term effects are going to be kind of shitty, I think.
Sure.
Because they call it a sunsetting period where some of these things kind of fall off. So the deductions might not be as high. But I think there is a little bit of misconception around it too. I think a lot of people are like, because the Republicans are pushing it, it's going to be this way. And it pretty much is. But, like next year, you won't be able to write off student loan interest, which for me still won't matter because I probably won't meet the threshold to itemize. But for the most part, if the standard deduction is going to increase, people kind of net out for them, for the average person, they probably won't see too much of a change.
So what's the strategy behind the sunset period there? Because it seems like it doesn't really help out the people that the bill is meant to serve.
Well, I think that's more of a political strategy than anything else. So when the Republicans get together and they say, hey, we were making the biggest, the cut bill, where it's the biggest cuts that have ever been made, and there's a little bit of hype around it. Okay, well that's great, and it might be beneficial to a lot of people in 2018, 2019, but the government kind of loses money off of this. In fact, it pushes our deficit up even higher. So, and my understanding of this is some of these cuts, quote unquote, have sunset periods. So they just kind of phase out, and they can be, reintroduced, but for the most part, they're just going to fall off, and we're going to probably end up with a different looking tax plan that more than likely favors larger corporations and stuff like that. That's my understanding. But Republicans, not getting too deep into the political arena, it's been a rough year for them, and with elections coming up, they kind of needed a win. So they were pushing this through.
That's good stuff. I appreciate that. We are working our way through W2 number 2. W2. We are almost done with the state and local taxes of the W2. We're hitting continue. Let's see where TurboTax takes us next. Okay, we're in good shape. We owe some money to Illinois, but the federal refund is looking good so far, and we haven't even gotten to the education stuff. And that's kind of like the heart of the order for me, because I feel like I paid about $5 million just in tuition this year. So, well, in this economy, you know how it goes. We're gonna get back to the taxes later, and I won't run this podcast too much longer because I know everyone's got stuff to do. But we did reach out to you a little bit earlier last week. And looking at the timestamp, you emailed us back February 14th at 12:06 a.m. So it looks like you were having a rockin' Valentine's Day.
Okay, well, there's a story behind that.
Yeah, go for it.
There's really no story. I just had a really boring Valentine's Day. It was me at home with my socks off, drinking some whiskey. That's pretty much what it is.
Were you cold?
No, I had enough whiskey at that point. My cold feet weren't really an issue, so.
I feel that. One of my favorite things that I've been doing this month, so I was dry in January, but I got a flask for Christmas, and what I've been doing is taking one weekend night, so this week is probably going to be tomorrow night, and I'll eat my dinner at home and have like 2 drinks maybe, usually a beer, and then I fill up my flask with something like bourbon, or last week we were doing tequila, and I go see a movie, and it's not like I'm chugging my flask. I pace it out throughout the night, but the way I pace it out is that right when the movie is getting into like the last 20 minutes, I start to really fall off, and it'll be a situation where all of a sudden the credits start rolling, and it's like when you're driving on the highway and you like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I don't remember the last 10 seconds. That's how it feels for me when I start to see the credits, except it's like the last 20 to 30 minutes of this movie. And then I proceed to stand up out of my chair, and I leisurely walk home, and I eat a lot of carbs when I get home to make sure that there's no ill effects in the morning. So February has been great for my diet, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, it's a lot of fun going to movies by yourself. And yeah.
How legal is that there, flasking in a theater?
You know, I haven't looked up the rules myself. I would guess there are some policies against it, but I don't know. The movie theater I go to is very chill and kind of old-timey, and I don't know. It's easy to sneak stuff into a movie theater when it's 20 degrees outside because you already come in look like the Michelin Man. The real strategy comes when it's middle of July, mid-Atlantic, which is just a hell like I've never experienced before. You gotta wear like cargo shorts.
Shorts on, you're gonna have your cutoffs. Where are you gonna stick your flask?
I'm thinking, so I got some cargo pants, and you zip them off at the knees, but you still. I'm telling you, these things are great. I wore them to trivia last night along with my new Hawaiian shirt. I was looking. It was kind of like a Jimmy Buffett with cargo pants type of deal. It was actually pretty cool, but yeah, I don't know. They work well. They're actually like very great pants because you can wear them for hiking. There's a lot of pocket storage. I think I'll take them to Anchorage this summer when I go because they work out quite nicely. So, and you can zip them off and make shorts out of them. So
Very
yeah.
handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the best thing to come out of the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And like the Wonder Balls.
That and Us, yeah.
And I forgot about that. We're great.
Hey, my birthday is 3 weeks from today. How do you like that?
Happy 3 weeks from now. Birthday.
Thank you. So, let's get back into this here because we're already at 26 minutes. We got top 10 tips for doing your taxes this season, and let's go ahead and go through them, and I'll read one, and if you have any commentary, feel free to follow up with that. If not, we'll just keep going. But yeah, number one is get a cup of hot Joe. Now, if you live in Northern Illinois and you're doing your taxes, where would you recommend gas station wise going to get a cup of hot Joe?
There's a very small gas station in Rockton. It's called, I don't even know. I don't think it has a name. I think it's called Gas Station. And it literally has those tanks that, like, when you pump up, it's not digital. The numbers just roll. And,
that's good stuff.
You could probably get killed there, probably. But I think they have good coffee. I don't know. As far as gas station coffee goes.
What was the name of that lady when we were at the Speedway on the 4th of July? Holly, I think that's right. She looked older than she probably was. We went to the Speedway to get, was slushies or something?
Yeah,
Speedy Freeze on the 4th of July. One of many, like, semi-memorable 4th of Julys where nothing that cool actually happened.
That's probably better top two.
Oh, absolutely. I had one 4th of July, I think going into my senior year of high school, where I hung out with my friend PJ, and we went to my ex's house to get a hat that I had given her that my dad had originally given to me, so it had some special nostalgia to it, and we wanted it back. So we go to the house, and she's not home, but her mom's there, and we had a very awkward encounter at about 8 p.m. on the 4th of July to get my hat back. We got the hat back. Yeah. And now my dad has it again, so a little circle of life action there. But 4th of Julys were always an interesting time in high school because you always kind of felt like you should be making something really big or something really cool happen, and inevitably you end up in the parking lot of the Cherry Valley Mall playing Frisbee, which isn't so bad as long as the mosquitoes aren't out. So, yeah. Number one on the list was get yourself a cup of hot Joe. Number two is we're going to get real with you right here. Shit beforehand so you don't have an excuse to get up during the tax process. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, let's be honest. Once you sit down, you start going through everything. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this now. And then before you know it, April 18th rolls around. And for those of you who are like, oh, it's April 15th. Well, you actually get a few extra days. I think they changed that maybe 2 years ago. But yeah, you get that out of your system, literally.
That's good stuff. It's a play on words. I appreciate that. Number three, confirm. This is great. So when I emailed Matthew, I told him we had 1098Ts and even a 1098Q. So in response, number three, confirm that you actually got a 1098Q and not a 1099Q. I can now confirm in front of me we did not, in fact, receive a 1098Q. It's a 1099Q. So I think we're all good on number three. Let's go ahead and move to number four. Go, yeah. Put Eye of the Tiger on to get pumped. Now, Eye of the Tiger Survivor from Rocky 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think it's a second. I don't know. How many are there? 15?
Well, they made like 5 originally, I think, and then they came out with just the movie. It was titled Rocky Balboa. I think we were probably in like middle school or early high school. And now they have that Creed movie with Michael B. Jordan. So this is a question that I like to ask people, especially people like my dad, who seems like he's seen every movie under the sun. like very famous movies that you've never actually sat down and watched the entirety of, I will say that I've never watched a Rocky movie. So I bounced that question back to you. And we're trying to get like as famous as possible. So my dad's answer when I asked him this Christmas was E.T. My mom's answer was The Godfather. I felt like those were both very good choices for this sort of thing. If I pose that question to you, what are you thinking?
Well, I haven't seen E.T. actually.
Okay.
Either. And for the longest time, I hadn't seen Star Wars, but we fixed that, at least the major ones.
Yeah.
I have not seen Silence of the Lambs.
That's a good one.
It's a famous one, but
yeah.
I feel like it's kind of divided. Like, even though it's popular, you'll only watch it if you're a fan of those types of films.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't think I've seen Cinderella either.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's surprising. I watched...
Why
I don't know. It's just like a very classic Disney film. I don't know. It just feels like in all the years you spent growing up watching animated films, that had to slip in at some point, but maybe not. So one of my top answers on this question up until very recently was Apocalypse Now. And I finally sat down about a month ago. I'd made myself watch. It's a 3-hour behemoth, and it's good. It's just a lot to get through, but I can now say that I have seen, Apocalypse Now.
What about, have you seen Ben-Hur?
I have not seen Ben-Hur, no.
Oh, you're missing out.
Ben-Hur is like the movie that I think of, when I think of like an epic movie, I think of Ben-Hur, but I haven't seen it.
It's as boring as it sounds, but there's a good chariot race in there somewhere.
Always love a good chariot race. Number 5 is pretty simple, log in. And we have been on our TurboTax account all night as we've been going through this podcast. So we're going to go ahead and move into number 6. Realize you forgot your password that you made with TurboTax last year. So this actually happened to me when I was logging into my account the other day. And it's baffling because I'm one of those terrible people who uses the same password or same variation of their password for every single internet account that you have. And so I tried my base password and then all the possible known variations that I've ever used, and I couldn't do it. So I reset it back to the base password and it accepted it. So we're good to go now. I don't know what the issue is. Maybe they make you reset it every year no matter what, and they just don't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, secret. That happened to me too, though. Like mine's the same. I had the same password for everything. Kind of like Equifax over here. I think their password was password though. At least I security a little bit.
Let's go ahead and move to number 7 here. Curse. We've already done that a few times tonight, although I feel like we've been pretty good language-wise. I do have a quick update on my mom. So we talked a few podcasts ago about some online dating, and in the wake of that podcast going live, we got some very angry feedback from my own mother saying that she had... Angry or mixed? No, it was angry. No, there was nothing mixed about it. She said she refused to listen to further podcasts after that one came out. So that was a pretty much a hit in the gut, because that was like 50% of our listening population. Now, we did have a conversation this week, and she said that if I promised to never date again, that she would consider coming back to the podcast. Now, that's not exactly what she said, but that's what I heard when I was talking to her. So we'll see. I know Mom could probably use some help with the taxes, getting a little bit older in life, and it's always good to have a refresher. So hopefully, obviously there's no way that anyone has made it this far in the listening process of the podcast. We're at 35 minutes, but yeah, Mom, we'd love to have you back. We are at 2 subscribers now. We'd love to bump that up to 3. Matthew, your thoughts on that?
First of all, is that really what your subscriber count is? Is it actually 2?
We don't keep track. I don't want to get a big head.
right, that's fair. Mrs. Furness, if you're listening, glad to have you back. If you're not, then shame on you, I guess. I can say that because then you wouldn't be listening. You wouldn't know. So.
That's good stuff. Let's plug ahead here as we move into the final stages of this podcast. Number 8 is reset password. That kind of goes in nicely with number 6. We're already there. Number 9 is do your taxes. That's a pretty straightforward tip. Matthew, you have anything extra you want to add there?
I think that's pretty much as simple as that gets. Yeah.
Okay. Number 10, realize that motivating and logging in are the worst part of doing taxes. I got to tell you, TurboTax has got this down to a science. It looks good. I'm having a good time doing it. Yeah, I think you're right. Once you get going, it's not bad.
Yeah, inspirational prompts like, how are you doing? You feeling okay? And then they give you smiley faces and like butterflies and sprinkles. Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen the sprinkles yet, but we will keep an eye out for that.
That's the last page.
We have a bonus tip here. Number 11, realize number 10 is wrong. Taxes are the worst part of doing taxes. Classic fashion, bringing it back around to where we started. That's good stuff. Yeah, those were the top 10 tips. Matthew, do you have any kind of last second parting thoughts for doing your taxes this season?
Something that I would say is, I don't know why people, specifically people in my life, they always wait till the last minute to get them done. And I realize that people are busy, but the sooner that you get them done, I mean, this sounds very cheesy, but just get them done. Otherwise, it's just something you push off, and, whatever. And then following up with that, and I shouldn't say this because I am an accountant, and we thrive. We babysit your money, basically. But for those who are like tax preparers, if it's just you, or you're married and you have a pretty simple tax form, don't go to H&R Block, or like, you can do it yourself. It's not all that daunting, especially like you mentioned, TurboTax is pretty straightforward. Taxes seem very scary. The IRS seems very scary, but essentially it's just like just going to the DMV, which, as I'm saying this, I realize is also very scary. But it shouldn't be a big process.
But the worst part about the DMV is you're always waiting in line with your number. When you're on the internet, you're not waiting for anybody. It's up to you to go at the speed you want.
That depends on your internet connection.
Oh, man. Do not get Matthew started on internet connection. We could spend a whole half-hour podcast just talking about that.
I'm over here in Greenland with no service.
We'll try to put a link to Matthew's location on Google Street Maps.
Appreciate that.
If you squint, you can see a polar bear and some. I was gonna say Eskimo, but that's not the correct term anymore, is it? Inuit people? Is that what we're supposed to say? Inuit? Yeah.
It's funny because you're using. Oh wait, no, that's Intuit. Okay, that's fine. Never mind. I was gonna make a corny joke about the program you're using.
Always looking for.
It's a full circle because I've now hit on my dry accounting jokes. So.
Yeah, we did touch on that in the beginning, didn't we? Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to get through. Matthew, we're going to keep you on the line to wrap up after the podcast finishes recording here for just a couple minutes. But I do want to thank you very much for coming on the air live, giving us 40 minutes of your time and some top tax tips. And, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if you work for RSM. Is that right?
That's correct. I don't know if legally they want me to be broadcasting that.
Well, I
because I don't know if they want to claim me. But yes, I do work there.
I think they're going to be very happy when they see a spike in business by about 300% after this podcast hits the airwaves.
Big
If you are listening to this, there's the potential chance that you are on iTunes. We're looking to make that shift to iTunes. Not a shift, but a doubling. We're going to stay broadcasting on YouTube. We're also going to be up on iTunes and looks like SoundCloud as well. So we're really expanding our market. Thank you to all the Pledge Drive telethon donors from last week. We raised just a bit over $100, which was actually great. And that will get the podcast up on the air on iTunes for about 10 months. So not too shabby in that department, but that's just an annual pledge drive. We'll be doing that once per year around this time. Again, next week, we are going to be doing our Oscars Predictacular. We are looking for a guest for that show. So if you're interested, you think you can outpick myself in the Oscars categories, great. If you don't volunteer, you might end up having to listen to Matthew ramble for 35 minutes about his Oscars predictions.
I haven't seen any of them.
He hasn't even seen Cinderella. So, anyways, thank you.
Cinderella could win this year, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks again, Matthew. I actually really do appreciate you coming on and your insight, and you make the podcast far more interesting. Yeah, that's what we wanted to say. Hope you have a good week, and I will check in on you next weekend.